A little bit about myself. My career started at Sun Microsystems a number of years ago. That was in IT at Sun. From there, I moved to a small company called Intraware. Actually, was in the East Bay. It still exists as part of Flexera Software, and that was actually my first involvement with a company that was involved with what we call SaaS today, software as a service. And I started there in '98, before that term was really even coined. It was coined actually a couple of years later by the Software Institute Association, something like that, and then was very much popularized over the next few years, most notably by Salesforce, as they started out. And I've really enjoyed being kind of in the SaaS industry. From there, I went to Yahoo. So I had an experience at the company Intraware that I was at, where very high growth company in the SaaS business. I had a lot of breadth as far as responsibility, and then went to Yahoo and basically had an opportunity to kind of dig down deeper into a smaller focused area. I worked in some of the media properties in the Yahoo Sports platform, the Yahoo Finance platform, and then spent the last almost 2 years of my role at Yahoo leading Flickr here in San Francisco. So, and then from there, I came to Zendesk just 4 years ago. We've been a ThousandEyes customer for just a little over 3 years. Actually used ThousandEyes for quite some time. And again, I'm back to having a role that has a lot of breadth in it, which I really love. And I've enjoyed the past 4 years that I've been at Zendesk and been able to be involved in so many different parts of our production engineering, our global presence, and just the overall growth of the company. The background here, I guess, like it's a common thing for us to have a picture of something outdoors or whatever. We never seem to have something about our hobbies where we do a picture of like a screen with a terminal on it or something. But this is I work during the week and love whenever I can to get outdoors on the weekend. This is actually for anyone that's been backpacking in the Sierras. This is a look over Echo Lakes up in the Sierras from the Desolation Wilderness area. So for anyone that's been there, so that's something I enjoy. I'm involved in scouting for quite a bit with my kids, and then do a lot with my wife and our 4 kids. So the first of which is in this year in college down in San Diego. I can't believe I've got a kid in college, but I guess that sneaks up on you. So a little bit about Zendesk. So our products are really focused around support, around self-service, and around engagement with customers. And a lot of what we talk to customers, prospects, and just the industry in general about recently is we want to help companies develop better relationships with their partners, and with their customers. So much of what we do is around relationships. And so our suite of products include core ticketing, which I'm sure everyone is familiar with, many different types of core ticketing applications and support applications. That's really kind of where the company was founded. Back in 2007, there were our 3 founders were consultants back in Denmark, and they were involved year after year with many different implementations of really large support systems over 9-month implementations, and then you would at that point forward begin to pay kind of annuities to groups of consultants to keep your application going. And they got together and they said, there's got to be a better way to do this, a better way to provide kind of a democratization of software within a company, to where if there's a small department need for a support system, you should be able to just start that out on your own, not need a 9-month implementation cycle. You should be able to go self-service and meet that need right away. Those 3 founders moved to the US, came to San Francisco, raised a few rounds of funding. We had a public offering last year. Got the ticker symbol Zen, which is I think is pretty cool. And today we've got 60,000 companies that use us for support, self-service, and enablement. But that all started kind of with the core ticketing focus. This is a couple of shots of our Help Center product, which is really about the self-service part of the business. What you want ideally is for customers to be able to solve their own issues. When they have problems, you want to provide them with the information that they need on how to use your product and how to solve problems. And so customers of ours, just like ThousandEyes, when you go to the ThousandEyes Help Center, you're using a Zendesk product. We want to provide good analytics for your support usage. So we have an analytics platform to let you know kind of and manage large support groups, even small support groups, and see how things are going. So we've got an analytics product, as well as a couple of acquisitions which we've done in the past couple of years. The first is a company called Zopum in Singapore, and we've integrated the Zopum chat platform into our product to give a full-featured, very rich agent experience for chat on a site, and allow more than 100,000 sites across the world use our embeddable widget to start chats. So very much like in a sales experience or whatever, when you get that pop-up window that says, hey, I see you've been on this page for a while, that may be a Zendesk Zopum chat agent coming up there. Another acquisition that we did was a company, BIME Analytics, in Montpellier, France, which is a real bummer to have to go and visit them. But this acquisition just in the last 18 months, and now have a very rich analytics platform that allows as customers to use 40 different data connectors for different platforms that may be pulling from data which you have within your own data center, maybe pulling from other cloud data sources or other applications, and take that information and bring it together into visualizations that can kind of give you rich dashboards and other data analytics visualizations. And then our Relate brand and our relationships are complicated brand campaign, which is a newer thing. But again, kind of coming back to the fact that we want to help people build the relationships that they have with their customers and partners. And so we even have Relate Live, which are a series of conferences that we're running, somewhat similar to this, where we have customers and partners come and talk about ways to build better relationships with their customers. We want to help people, again, have better relationships. And I think about the ThousandEyes Connect event. I mean, that's the same thing that ThousandEyes is trying to do here, as well as thinking about the news of the NIC service, trying to bring different disconnected customers together. If I'm having a problem and Kevin at Rich Relevance is having a problem, and it's because of the same provider issue, to be able to correlate those things and even though we may not know it, benefit both of us as a result of that. I think that's that's great as well. So I have two topics that I'm going to talk about today. The first is a little bit about our deployment of enterprise agents, and then I'm also going to talk about the experience that we've had with some of our global expansion, if you will. But first, around enterprise agents. I was going to kind of ask who was familiar with those and everything, but I think they've been mentioned a few times today so far, and I think the general idea around having an agent, which in addition to all of the cloud agents which ThousandEyes provides, and other companies that would allow you to do kind of public hosted synthetic testing. There's a full network of different agents that ThousandEyes already provides globally for use. But sometimes you want to have a different perspective, and I think that's the key thing for me with enterprise agents is really it allows you to have a unique perspective around your tests, and we found them to be incredibly valuable. So we have deployed them. We have a deployment of 13 enterprise agents right now. They're in our data centers. We have 2 US data centers, 2 European data centers, and then we have each one of those has kind of multiple full stacks of the Zendesk application set. And then we also have an implementation in AWS in Tokyo, where we've deployed enterprise agents there as well. And so what that's allowed us to do is through the configuration of each one of those to have basically this full mesh intelligence around how things are going in between those data centers, including across non-public links. So we've got a VPLS implementation between all of those data center locations. Well, something different for the AWS, but with the other 4 data centers, and we're able to monitor across that mesh as well. And then one of the other key things is that gives us some perspective on some key services that we're dependent on. So we can, from our network, like I guess it's useful to have a test. Maybe if you've got a partner that you're dependent on, it's useful to be able to get information that from the Frankfurt agent that ThousandEyes has deployed, that maybe there's some packet loss going to a particular provider that is important to you. But it's a different perspective, and all that much more important to us for me to know that from within our Frankfurt data center, with the providers that we use, the provider mix that we have in that data center, what our view of that provider is something that's even more important. So the enterprise agents have been very helpful in that way for us. I'm responsible for DR as well. So like if the power goes off, I'm like old school. I got my paper. So I have to say that like my DR person will be very happy. So a few examples of things that have happened where this has been pretty key. So they've helped us detect some issues that we would have seen with other tools. We would have seen from Nagios, we would have seen from a variety of different monitoring tools. An interface flapping on a router, for example. Like we would have gotten lots of alarms. You could have a dozen different tools all telling you that. And ThousandEyes is no exception. It also gives us some of that detail, and sometimes allows us to visualize things better. So it covers us there. But where we've really seen some additional value is, again, I mentioned like our VPLS network. We were able to troubleshoot a problem that we didn't know that we had, with quite a bit of packet loss occurring at different times during the day over a long period of time, which kind of got lost in other tools that were just showing basically state. It's up, but weren't getting into the details of packet loss. And so this is one case where we've really benefited from the use of the enterprise agents, and actually have made a carrier change in kind of our VPLS setup as a result of that, and solved the problem for us. And then the other issue, which I think I mentioned a little bit, were actually I didn't mention yet, which is upstream provider problems. So from time to time, we've had issues with using one of our other cloud providers for storage, and when we have accessibility issues storing objects there, it can cause kind of a backing effect onto our application stack, and actually cause some relatively serious problems for attachments and large objects within our service. But in ThousandEyes, it allows us to get some visibility into things that are well, it's not my problem type of thing, where it's not our network, it's not the carrier links that we have, but a few hops down the road in the intermediate network between us and a cloud provider, there's an issue. And so we get a lot more visibility and network intelligence into what is going on there by having enterprise agents within our data center that are testing the third parties that are important for us. And one of the other, and I think the fourth instance that has really been valuable for us is one product I didn't mention is our Zendesk voice product. But as you know, like voice is something that is very latency sensitive, and sensitive to jitter and any kind of packet loss that's going on. And so we have a we have 60,000 companies using us, and we have a pretty good adoption of our Zendesk voice product. And so we have customers that are really sophisticated in their use of and knowledge of what is needed in an office for voice, and others that aren't so much. So maybe there's a global call center somewhere where they pack as many people as they can into a room to to do support, but they haven't thought about how robust the network needs to be to support basically a voice application. And so by deploying in a couple of cases kind of the escalated support issues and everything, we've deployed an agent out onto a customer site a couple of times, and been able to get intelligence over a couple of weeks or even over a month or so as to what's going on at that customer site, and moved our conversation with that customer to another level, been able to help them kind of solve the problems that they had locally, that otherwise we wouldn't be able to do that. We wouldn't be able to get that visibility other than to kind of send an SE out on site, and obviously that's a very costly thing to do. I want to move into something that we've been digging into over the past few months quite a bit, and we kind of have a project team working on right now, and that's around global performance, and right now kind of specifically in China. So I mentioned our company was founded in Denmark. Our founders right from the beginning wanted to have a very global company. Our organization is definitely very global right from the start. Today, more of our revenue comes from outside of the US than it does from inside. We have 9 global engineering offices. My entire group, there's about 50 people in engineering ops, and most of them are not in the US. They're distributed out to our other engineering offices. And so along with that, like our sales and marketing efforts have also been global for quite some time. So, dealing with issues in one country or another around performance or different business constructs and everything isn't anything new to us. And over the past couple of years, issues related to performance in China have come up quite often. And so we have, kind of look at this in the user scenarios as kind of 3 different scenarios. There's multinational customers of Zendesk, which are located elsewhere, but they have end users. If you're a widget manufacturer in Vietnam, I'm just going to pick in Vietnam, and there are some Chinese customers that you have, within China, they're customers of yours. Those are end users that, if you're using Zendesk, need to be able to get to the help center and be able to use the products that you've contracted for. Then the other case where you're a multinational company headquartered outside of China, but you may want to put a call center in China and do some support out of China. And so now you have the issue where you need your remote agents that are located in China. You need them to have a very performant relationship with the Zendesk agent endpoint. And then the third is direct customers in China. So our focus has really been around the first 2 of these. Today, there's not a Zendesk China. There's not a business entity that we have specifically in China. Doing direct customer relationship and business in China is a whole other presentation that probably would be much longer than the 25 minutes here. So really, we're trying to enable the customers that we have already in other countries just to effectively do business with end users and with staff in China. So there's a lot of opportunity there. There's billions of people there. There's I think 1 billion people online regularly within China, and that's growing certainly every day. So huge opportunity. Like, what's the problem? So I think everyone's heard of the Great Firewall, and of course that's not a single entity. It's not a single thing, but because of a combination of the way that the overall network has grown and been implemented in China, there's some very natural choke points for ingress and egress within China that can cause just pure performance problems. And then layer on top of that the political government interest in implementation of various filtering, black holing, DNS control, those sorts of things. And you can have a really spotty experience, and maybe not even spotty, but just, you can have experience that doesn't work at all from time to time. So luckily, ThousandEyes has agents in China, and we're able to get a view into kind of how our performance is there. And so I've just got just a couple samples here. This looks good because there's lots of green there, but it's actually not good because this is DNS. These are just some simple DNS queries out to Dyn, who happens to be one of our DNS providers. But you'll notice all the red along the bottom there, and this is a pretty large time series over a couple of weeks. And the red there is all unavailability. Those are DNS queries failing. And so this is not what I want DNS to look like, but this happens to be what queries look like from one of the regions within China. This is also red I don't want to see, and this is packet loss over a period of time. And a lot of times it's averaging more than 50% packet loss. And it's not true that some packets are okay. We kind of want to have most of them, So in this case, we're not really achieving that in that test. And this is more what you want it to look like. So this is an agent in Hong Kong where the performance is much better. There's still some blips on there, but you can live with this. So fortunately, we've had some help from ThousandEyes, and actually Youngju, who's in ThousandEyes marketing group, actually just posted in the past couple of weeks an excellent blog article about performance in China. And I will say, I would highly recommend that everyone in this room go to the ThousandEyes blog, read this as well as a past post on censorship in China, not in China specifically, but global censorship. Even if these aren't issues for you right now, because it's a great post. It is, as far as blog posts go, some of the most content dense blog posts that I've seen. I mean, a lot of times blog posts are kind of superficial and everything. There's a lot of great data in here. So Young's right up here. So thank you for what you contributed here. And then it also includes some great interactive graphs explaining some of the things like DNS cache poisoning, some of the filtering that goes on, and really provides a real good context for that. So there's not a lot on this slide because we're still working through trying to figure out how to improve some of the service there, from the DNS issues, from reachability outside of China. And of course, I mean, the easy answer is build a stack in China from maybe a technological standpoint. From a business standpoint, that isn't an easy answer. But obviously that is an option that's out there. And so we're trying to find out what are all the things that we can do short of that will give us the best performance possible. And so, well, I mentioned, we can build our own platform. We can also partner with other firms have done, partnering where they basically have partner company in China build out and operate their whole stack. That's another option as well. But some of the workarounds and duct tape, that's kind of what we're looking at right now. We've done some work around, and you can do some work with your CDN provider around name changes for your CDN endpoints. It doesn't need to be, whatever your CDN provider is, your CDN, CNAMEs don't have to include their name if you yell loud enough with them. And in some ways, that kind of allows you to, kind of fly under the radar, if you will, of some of the filtering mechanisms. And so that's a solution that the thing to be aware of there is that can work today, but it might not work tomorrow. And you just, you've got to have monitoring in place to know how that goes. So we've had some success there. And then there's also some companies that we've talked to where they've kind of taken an approach of a giant VPN with endpoints posted in Hong Kong, so that from China, generally you can get pretty good availability and access to resources that are in Hong Kong. So I know that there's companies that basically have remotely extended their endpoints out into Hong Kong with a big backhaul network that goes somewhere else. It may come back to the US, it may go to Europe, may just go somewhere else. And that's a solution as well. And then we've also done some things as far as email provider routing getting better relationships just from a support perspective with some of the big email providers, such as like Tencent QQ, which is one of the biggest email providers in China and represent the the equivalent of like an Outlook.com and a Hotmail. So your corporate hosted provider and also your public provider, or similar to Gmail. So one last thing I'll note is that when we started looking into this, one of the things we did was ask ThousandEyes for some of their kind of expertise and just visibility, because obviously they talk to a lot of customers who may be involved in problems like this, and I'd encourage you to do that when questions come up. They were very helpful, even to the extent of showing some things that we didn't have visibility to, as far as the effect of like DNS cache poisoning and those sorts of things, and just brought up some examples right in the tool from their monitors that they'd seen for kind of other customers and showed to us in an anonymized way. So I definitely encourage everyone to use them as a resource. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.